welcome to 4th and 1 special edition Monday on this Labor Day. I'm Roos with your boy Coach Trey, who looks just absolutely pissed and astonished from yesterday. That's why we're here. This is our reaction to the USC LSU game. USC coming out on top 27-20. And I'm just gonna give the floor right to you, Trey. What's your instant reaction here? I know we watched the game together, but we really didn't talk much after. So let's just go over it. What are your thoughts initially, and let's just talk.
Well, I kind of wanted to bring the box score up here so I could provide some color to the painting. It's hard to stomach that one, but to look at this from a 10,000-foot view, it kind of felt like this was a tale of two halves. But some of these things were kind of a never-ending suck fest. If you're in the majority, and it's not a majority, it's actually a very much small, insecure minority. If you are in the minority of thinking that anything other than dumb penalties was the defense's fault in the game, I think you're completely missing the point. I'm really gonna try to mince my words. I'm close because I'm close. Defense played well enough for you to win. You had your chances to win. If you're an LSU fan, you feel like here we go again. It's another loss. Losses provide no relief, but there has to be context. I think, and I kind of wrote these down. When you elect to receive, it's mathematically not in your favor. You could do that in 2019 when you had the best college football team of all time. I don't quite understand that. I know that you want to set the tone, and I've said this before, but like, as long as I understand that I can see it, if you receive the ball, you've already gone for it on fourth down, you're already on what's called borrowed time. Not taking the points there when you got down, 3 yards outside of the end zone. Like it just felt like the momentum was shifting into their end on that point. And I know that you don't want to go down there and say, oh no, we already got 3, but you're going down there and you're scoring points. The point of the game is to score points. And you could say hindsight's 20/20, but you and I both looked at each other and at that point and said, he needs to kick the field goal. He needs to. He's not, but he needs to. And I'm just going to stop there because I feel like this is going to be like a layered point that we each go back on. So based on that first point, what do you think about that?
So I'll start with, I tweeted out this morning, stupid penalties. I know you alluded to stupid penalties. I will, provide some context behind that and add that I'm referring to the 2 personal fouls, the 15 yards that drastically changed the games for both of those drives. I believe they got points on both of those drives after there. Obviously after the touchdown, great that we scored a touchdown, but taking a penalty from someone that's been on the team, it was a dumb mistake. I would imagine Lacey would go out and admit that as well. But that 15 yards drastically changed the field on the kickoff. And as you can see, they immediately got the ball at midfield after the kick return. The second one was after our defense got a stop. I believe Major Burns took his helmet off and got another 15. We ended up almost having the ball on their territory if the pick would have happened, but it didn't. And then now you could be at the 40, and you add 15, and you start at 25. So that's what I'm referring to as the penalties. Obviously, the penalties that were pass interference, the false starts, and stuff like that, they happen. Were there more than I liked? Yeah. I think a point that we can go over is, and Brian Kelly alluded to it, right? And one more before I go on to that. The receiving part sucked, right? I mean, you received the ball, with a new quarterback, right? We know Nuss is had expectations and stuff, but you don't receive there, especially if you win the toss. We saw Clemson do that against Georgia this weekend, and it didn't work, and it forces your hand, and that's why you couldn't kick the field goal and take three there, especially from the 3 yard line. Um, so let's start with the defense, right? Brian Kelly alluded to it, and he hit the nail on the head. Our offense played complacent, and they pretended that our defense was something they weren't. That was somewhat of a quote from him in the post game press conference, and that, I agree. And we all looked at each other while watching the game. We're like, we've given them so many chances. Like it's this, like we know what our defense is, right? Um, and like we were just like after the third attempt with the ball and the lead and didn't do anything with it. I'm just like, well, this is. I mean, we're gonna eventually break, and it happened. So, thoughts on the defense and what Kelly alluded to on that comment.
I mean, he did a really good job of not. I mean, there was a moment where he kind of lost his cool for a second, and who can blame him? And this is not, mission of Brian Kelly. Everything falls back on the head coach. It's obvious. They say it in every press conference. If you heard that press conference, and if you heard it as I'm going to blame the players, then you're not listening and you've never played football. I'm sorry. Like I'm not. And again, you and I are not. I'm not. This isn't like me calling a fan out. That is not what he was saying. And you would be wrong to think that a coach that has coached for that long would say that and mean that. Like you just lost your football game as a fan. I understand that you're upset. Remove yourself from the emotion for a second and understand that is not what he said. What he's asking for is accountability. And that alone has to be held in a vacuum. When you ask for accountability from your players, it's year 3. And what they've displayed in the offseason was that they had that. And then when you get to the game and they don't have that. But you, again, back to the coach, you are the nucleus that is supposed to make sure that they have that. So if you just want to be in the crowd that says deliver or be fired, then you don't even care about listening to the podcast anyway, because all you want is just and football is not a one sum value game. It's not. You can say, oh, it's wins and losses, but so wins and losses, there's not things that go into each win and each loss. So the truth of the matter is that he wanted there to be accountability. You can't have dumb mistakes on defense. You can't take your helmet off at midfield, dog. I know you're excited. I mean, you mentioned the penalty. Instead of starting at, the 42 or the 39 or whatever it was, you end up starting at the 25. I mean, you can't from the Kyron thing. And the defense made plays. I'm sorry. Like you had batted balls, you had 2 sacks from one player. You had, I mean, if Witt comes down with the ball, you're starting on the other side of the field, on the other side of the 50 rather, and the penalty really doesn't bother you as much because now all you have to do is just make a little bit of yardage towards that 3 and out that you ended up having. And then but now you might have an attempt to kick a field goal with it, or in this case, probably would have gone for it on 4th again. But I just think that the defense did everything that it could have done. And in the 4th, you saw them kind of drift back a little bit, and it's because they're tired. I mean, you had 3 and outs. Like with a chance to step on their throat and put the game away, you had it twice, and you went 3 and out because you refused to not be tone deaf. So that's my response to that. And I think you're going to now get into the second part, which is the other side of the football. So I'll let you set that up because I'm writing it down as we talk about it.
Yeah, and before we get there, I'll just go over some quick stats. Miller Moss was 27 of 36 for 378 yards, 1 touchdown. Dude played out of his mind, and he did all that Lincoln Riley could ask him to do. So props to him. Played a very good game. Some of the catches they made were incredible. Hats off to them for some of those catches. I disagree with the catch on that circus catch, right? I thought the ball hit the ground. We could agree to disagree on that.
With you, I'm with you. I'm just
right.
The camera angles weren't great, and it was an
insane catch. Regardless, right. It was an insane attempt. I don't think he caught it.
If we're USC fans, we're begging that goes our way. You know what I'm saying? Like it's one of those where it's like
it sucks. Right. Were the calls one-sided a little bit? Sure. I think you take the personal fouls out and you offset the delay of game and the false start. We had a couple pass interferences that they didn't. I felt like there were a couple holds and blocking the backs that could have been called. Nonetheless, not making excuses. The rush game they had about 80 yards if you take out the knees at the end from Miller Moss. So all in all, I mean, you gave up 450 yards, but you alluded to it, we played well defensively. Like, what do you want this team to do? They held them theoretically to 23 points. It was 27 on the scoreboard, but I mean the last touchdown sucked. I get it. I think they kind of gave up. I don't blame them. It's hard for me to even like understand how they were feeling after that penalty and the big catch. But anyways, they did everything they were supposed to do. The stats were great. Miller Moss played well. At times, I felt like the linebacker play was good when they blitzed, but the middle of the field was wide open at times. But I like the aggressiveness. It was a change. We never had that last year. It was just sit back and get your ass kicked. So I liked that we were bringing pressure. I liked with our defense. I think there's potential, but like I said, Brian Kelly alluded to it. Our offense pretended like they were something they weren't. And that's the issue here. And you look at the box score for Nussmeier, 29 of 38 for 304 yards. Take the pick at the end, whatever. It is what it is. It was desperation mode at that point. Let's just start with quarterback play. I thought the quarterback play in the first half was great. I was like, oh shit, because I was a doubter, right, of Nuss. I was. I thought he made some incredible throws. Everything was on the money. I think there were, we get to the second half. I think it wasn't necessarily his fault. I think there were a couple throws he could have made given the circumstances. But all in all, I would more or less point to the play calling more than anything in the second half. I'm not going to directly throw that on Nuss. Thoughts on the play calling and was like who's signing off on that? I know obviously every year we have situations where is the OC actually calling the plays? Does it go through BK? What is your opinion on the second half play calling? Was it directly Sloan? As far as I'm aware, it was based on, and you could really tell from BK's press conference. I think he would have taken accountability if it was through him. He did his best to not direct it towards Sloan, but what are your thoughts, all in all, on all of that?
Outside of getting John Emery going, I think it was tone deaf and bullshit. Because I hate to be that blunt, but outside of getting John Emery going, it was tone deaf. And your inability to look at Kyron Lacy being unguardable, Russo, his touchdown catch was the second to last catch he had of the game. You and I looked at his receptions over, and it was at 6.5, and he was already at it at the end of the first drive. And I understand that he could have been double covered, but it's hard for me to believe that he was double covered the entire second half. And it just felt like even if he was, you scheme him somewhere else, or you give the ball to someone else, because if he's being doubled, then math is math. You feel me? So it's kind of difficult for me to say anything other than the fact that it was tone deaf. I feel like Sloan completely and entirely overthought this. Okay, he overthought it. Conservative. It's hard to say conservative because they did try to mix it up, but they didn't do it in the traditional way that you were used to seeing it. Next is, I think, where was the push? And it is, and look, I know LSU ran for 117 yards. I know they ran for 117 yards. One of those was a really long John Emery carry, and another Josh Williams for 10. Like there was plays that kind of made that be better, dude. Where was this push that, I'm not saying that you should have gotten a push because USC is weak. Their defense is obviously better, But it's like the play calling was being called that they were seeing a different game than we were seeing. Like the play calling was such that you were watching 6 and 7 yards a carry type stuff. And on average, you ran the ball for almost 5, like on average, considering how many times you ran it versus the yardage that you got in the game, which we know is sometimes a skewed stat. But when you were going to the run out of the shotgun with no momentum going forward on 3rd and 2, on 3rd and 3, on 4th and 1, or whatever those kind of downage, yardage are, that is the immediate thing to do something like that just tells me that you're not seeing the full picture that we're seeing. Like you're not watching the game. And I don't know, man. It felt like you got lost. It felt like you had like a list of plays that you were like told to run and you didn't run them yet, or you didn't run them the way that you wanted. So you wanted to run them one more time just to like see what you can get. But why are you even trying to run it when you need to put the game away? Throw the ball. Kyron couldn't be guarded by anybody. Like there was no one that he could be guarded by. So it felt tone deaf, dude. I'm sorry. Like I know that that's long. Like I know that that's hard to like hear for some people, because this is the precedent that you were set on for the last couple of years, that the offense could get you out of trouble. But you don't have Jaden Daniels anymore. You have Garrett Nussmeier, and Garrett came out slinging the pill, dude. Like he did what the offense felt like they didn't know that he would do to that level, and then took it from him. Like they didn't know that he was going to be that precise. And coming out of the timeout, obviously he didn't make the little run, the little rub to Aaron Anderson inside the 10. And if he catches that, then obviously the clock keeps running, and you're doing this. They don't have time to come back on the field. But it's 6 of one, half a dozen the other. If you make it or you don't make it. Come on, man. Like when it mattered most, he didn't make the play and Miller Moss did. And I don't think that it's fair for you to say that we didn't expect Garrett to do that. I mean, I know you kind of didn't believe in him. I was more in the journey of I thought that he like had to perform. Man, and I guess to bullet it, it was tone deaf. You were doing things that really just didn't make sense. You had the chance to put it away twice, and Garrett came out and was as good as he could have been, and you didn't let him continue to do it in the second half. And it's very hard to swallow, man.
Agreed. I agree. Like I said, we had different opinions on the stance of Nuss. I was impressed. I agree that I felt the play calling took away from him in the second half. I didn't see much down the field in the second half. I mean, just go to the first drive. Okay, Kyron Lacey on several curl flats, 10 yards a pop. Easy. It was easy. I know the defense made adjustments in the second half. I get it. But you've got to find your best receiver. Aaron Anderson had a hell of a game. Is that his name, Aaron? Yeah. He had a hell of a game. He also played well. Mason Taylor played well. All of them filled up the box score, but a lot of that came from the first half. And the play calling, I don't know. In the second half, there were a lot of throws on third down, not close to the first down sticks. Lots were beforehand. I don't know if that was because of Nuss's reads or if that's just how the play call was designed. And I hate that as a fan, anyone. Like on third down, you need to go for the first down, right? I mean, unless you're running the setup going for it on fourth. I think Marcus Spears on Get Up this morning alluded to the same thing you did, is why aren't we lining up an I formation or single back? Like, why aren't we doing that? We have two of the best tackles in the country. Why aren't we running out of single back more? I think if you come out in the second half alone and run single back, I'm telling you, man, this game would have been different. You would have controlled the game, but you can't run out of shotgun all the time unless you're doing strict RPOs. And we weren't doing that in the second half. We weren't doing RPOs. USC was. And credit to our defense, they did what they could. But RPOs keep your run defense honest. And we just didn't do that. We were either handing it off straight away with no RPO, or we were dropping back to throw. So the single back thing, and I asked you midway through the game, like, is Nuss scared to go out of single back? because like some quarterbacks just are, right? I mean, some quarterbacks are just so used to being out of shotgun. It's just concerning that never changed at all at any point in the game. Brian Kelly at Notre Dame, you think he lined up at shotgun every single play? No.
He
Um,
didn't have these athletes on the outside.
I agree. I agree with you, but you have to be like, imagine Nuss out of on a play action
I'm
on a
not
single back.
disagreeing. I'm just playing
Yeah,
devil's advocate,
no,
by the
of
way.
course. Imagine Nuss the potential out of if we were to run offense sometimes out of single back, say for 2 drives, right? The run game would be better, and you could easily set up play action. And I think Nuss would kill it with these athletes on the outside with play action. I you're just not playing to win with the play calling they did. And it's frustrating because you can point to several different things. Again, on week 1, why aren't we like what's happening? Right? Like why are we coming out? Will Campbell got 2 false starts yesterday. Like why aren't we why is the same shit happening every year? There's no excuse this year because like you could argue the prior 3 years against Florida State and UCLA, all 3 of those times they played a week 0 game. So they got their kinks out, right? Everyone went through it this year on the same it was the same situation, new quarterbacks, new defensive coordinators, new everything, and they still looked more disciplined than ever compared to us. It's just frustrating, man, because you look at 2 or 3 calls, 2 or 3 situations, and we win that game. It's the same thing we could have argued with Florida State the last 2 years. Maybe not as much with UCLA because they did beat our ass that game. But it's just you look at so many situations, you have it twice. Your defense gives you 2 opportunities to put the game away with the lead, and you just didn't do it. And like I said, I admire Brian Kelly. I'm in the minority. I admire his passion at the end in that conference. But like, what is going on every year that this is happening? If they just went out and beat us, right? Like just straight up, like we played a perfect game and they beat us, it'd be one thing, right? I'm just like, okay, they're the better team. But they're not the better team, man. They're not. Not in my opinion. Miller Moss played a hell of a game. They made some outstanding catches. But you point to several things that were self-inflicted that cost us the game. So that's just my opinion.
Best way to explain it is that like when the game had started until when the first points were scored, the better team hadn't scored a point. The team that had set the momentum and all of a sudden you realize that you have been going up and down the field and it's 7-0 and you're losing. Now you would go on to respond, but that just goes back to my point about electing to receive. And the idea behind electing to kick is that you get the last possession of the first half, unless something happens with a turnover and the possessions go different. The point is to have the last possession of the first half and to get it and set the tone for the second half, with the hope of having an extra possession in the second half and potentially that extra possession being the last possession of the game. So it's just hard. And you saw it play out, man, because USC had the ball last. And I know that's different because you went 3 and out and you went for it and didn't get it. And I hear the momentum piece, man, but it's just mathematically not on your side and in your favor to do that. And so that's why I'm so confused. And I'm here with you on, and the center misses a block and there's a free rusher and Garrett has to throw the ball out and you don't get it on the 4th down in the first drive of the game. I get it. Kamorian Pimpton, another time you get in the end zone or in the red zone rather, Kamorian Pimpton completely whiffs on the block. And I mean, dude, it's just, he's not a first-year player, but it's his, first real time in the game having a block, and he's learning. But dude, you whiff on the block, edge rusher comes in and stops and stops the runner for basically no gain. It might have been John on that one. I don't know if it was John or Josh, and you end up settling for a field goal, and then 7 total carries by Caleb Jackson. That sounds bad. Like that just sounds bad. in the game. And can you write that away by saying because you ended up giving those carries to John because he was the only one with juice? Maybe. But if you're going to, and that's my point, if you're going to run the football and you're going to run it on short yardage situations, we've watched you all camp take snaps under center in 22 personnel. Like we've watched you do it. We 22. Like I, run the ball from under the center. Like it just felt like you were trying things, but you were just trying similar avenues of the same thing and in wrong places, man. Like it just felt tone deaf for me after the first half. It felt like you were playing not to lose. And I think Big Bro Crane said it the best. You played not to lose, and that alone is not how you've played offense for the last couple of years. And I don't care that you don't have Jaden Daniels because you didn't play that way in the bowl game whenever you were playing Wisconsin and the Cheeseheads. You were pretty much letting Garrett sling it wherever you wanted to. And you did that in the first half, and then you went away from it. I don't know, man. That's pretty, and that's kind of where like I stop with it. Like, what else are we supposed to say? Like, am I missing something? Like,
I guess we can close with this is how do you think the season plays out now? Obviously, there's two different avenues going into this game. Do you take any positives away from this? Do you take any, like, where are you at going into?
Tons of positive to take. There's tons of positive to take. And if you're looking at, has the defense got better? Yes. Can you get a push? Yes. Problem is that offensive line for USC was big, dude. They were big. But is that the best offensive line you're going to see all year? Probably not. It wasn't really a true road game because you had the advantage in the crowd, even if it was, 60-40 or 70-30 or even 55-45 like that. Like you still had the momentum. It was rocking in there. So you're still going to have true road games, right? You've now left your margin for error so small and so thin. And remember, I disagreed with you in that you thought a three loss team is going to make the playoff, and not in a 12-team format. I don't think so because there's so many teams that scheduled soft that I don't think you're going to have that opportunity. And the only way that you do something like that is in the off chance that there's so many other 2 and 3 loss teams in the SEC to get you into the championship to have that 10th win come in the SEC championship game to give you that in, because it's just going to be hard for me to believe, man. And so, and I said this going into the game, I think if you lose to South California, I think that you are going to have a hard time going 10-2 because you tried to do it with Jaden Daniels last year and you couldn't. There was just too many mistakes. And if you won, I think you had a great chance at going 10-2 because this was one of those coin flip games. And so now, does going on the road to South Carolina and Texas A&M seem a little bit more doable considering how those teams look? Maybe, but you still have to go on the road and do it because we just watched you go on the road and lose. So if you want my honest opinion, I think there's a lot of positives to take away from it. But the one negative is, where was this offensive line that you said was going to get all of this push, because you play called as if they were getting a push and they didn't. Second, why was the play calling tone deaf? It hasn't been tone deaf in a couple of years now. So where did that come from? And then number 3, when is it going to be like enough is enough for us to stand up in the face of adversity and go, I'm tired of everybody clowning us and I'm tired of everybody setting the tone for us in the Twitter sphere and all the crap. Like, when are we just going to go out there and just put it all to bed and just win? From the start, from the jump, from the beginning of the season, you had all these weeks to prepare and you still lost. Now, again, there's individual plays that made that happen, but we're looking at 10,000 foot view. You still lost.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think there's lots of positives. It just sucks that you have now to basically, and let's look at it. South Carolina didn't play well against a bad team. A&M didn't look good. Notre Dame's a great team. A&M didn't look good, but is that because of Notre Dame? Is that because of personnel themselves? So you have those two games. Ole Miss was like a powerhouse. I lost all faith in that. Right. I think that might be a boat race.
They look great. It was
I get it. I get it. They played Furman. I get it. And
Okay.
they've got a tough
As long
schedule.
as we say it out loud,
They
and
played
they
Furman.
don't
I get it. I
they
get it.
don't have a tough schedule, Anthony. Don't do that.
Well, they play Georgia, and I believe they play Texas, right? Or do they play Alabama too? I think they play all three, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm,
Um,
mm, mm,
I could be wrong.
mm.
Could be wrong.
I'm gonna confirm because I don't believe they played Texas, but no,
But
they're
anyways,
don't mistake their schedule for being hard. There's
but
no
the
one
but the
on the earth that
positive
believes that.
the positive is that the scheduling helps, right, with Ole Miss. They have to play 7 straight games, I believe, or 6 straight, and we get a bye before that game.
At least they know
So
how to schedule.
LSU, no, that's us. Like they play 7 straight games, and then we get the bye before them. Um, and I believe they have to play Georgia the week before. They play someone tough the week before.
They're on the road at South Carolina and on the road at Kentucky, and they come off of that to play us. Following that, they play Oklahoma at home, Arkansas on the road, Georgia at home, Florida on the road, and they get State at the crib.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, like scheduling us, we'll have a bye week and they won't, so that's good, right? But I still think we'll lose that game. Uh, Bama at home, Bama played a bad team as well. I mean, they didn't play a horrible team. They played Western Kentucky, better than Furman. Looked okay. A lot of their fans were complaining towards the beginning of that game, but you have those games at home, so you've got to win your road games from here on out, right? A&M and South Carolina were 2 big ones. In the swamp, they looked bad against Miami. Is Miami good? Yes. Uh, those are your 3 most important games now. You could have slipped on one of those, right? And you could have slipped at Ole Miss or Bama. Now your margins, it's gone now. You've only got one now. And, maybe a 3-loss team gets in, depending on how the field played out. There wasn't a lot of, from the Big Ten, wasn't a lot. Like Oregon didn't look great, right? They looked horrible in the first half. Ohio State didn't look good in the first half. Obviously, they inflated their wins in the second half, but they didn't look good. I don't know, man. I think you take a lot of positives. Is this team a playoff team? No, I don't think so. Borderline playoff team, yeah. If they can put it together, I'll take it back. Will the defense get better? Yes. Will they face better players and personnel? Yes. USC was good. I know someone had said, "Hey, like we're gonna look back at this game and instead of hey, we gave up 27 to USC, we only let up 27 because they're so good." Blah, blah blah. I don't think that's the case. I think USC is gonna struggle in the Big Ten. That's just my opinion. Could be wrong. Miller Moss played great. He outplayed Nuss. Let's just be honest. He did everything that they asked, and Nuss, for the most part, did, but could have made a couple plays. Play calling obviously affected that. Lots of positives. Hopefully, they go under center this weekend against South Alabama, and we see some of that. I pray, right? Because if they don't do it, then when are we ever going to do it at that point? So
Nichols this weekend.
was it Nichols? Okay. I pray against Nichols we do that, right? I mean,
People are going to be so drunk, dude.
we have to go under center against Nichols, right? Like, if we don't do it against Nichols, it's not happening. Right? Is that fair? Like, why on earth would we go the next week against South Carolina doing that? So, man, neutral, honestly. Positives. Defense looked better than I anticipated. Nuss looked better than I anticipated. Coaching let us down. Dumb penalties let us down. Those 2 personal fouls definitely affected the game. It's just tiring. Like, we're both exhausted. We looked at each other after that game. Like, after the catch and then the targeting penalty, we, like, no one said a word. It was silence for about 30 minutes. It's just exhausting, right? I mean, like, everyone applauds LSU for scheduling these hard games, but I don't want to hear that bullshit. We should have won almost every single game. Like, at this point, it's self-inflicted. I don't want to hear that BS about, oh, we feel bad for y'all because y'all, like, no, like, whatever. Like, we should have won that game, and we didn't. So, that's it for me. Anything else from you?
I'm going to throw up if we keep doing it. So,
all right. Well, we will be back Thursday for a brand new episode. just gotta keep grinding. Hopefully, we take some lessons learned and bring them to Nichols this week, and pray we go under center. Other than that, we'll see you Thursday. We'll talk about the big games that week, and we'll go from there. So we will see y'all next time.